I am live. I'm reading out of Eyes of Horus. It is a far memory book by Joan Marshal Grants. She passed away in 1989 and she has had a life as Ra'ab here in this book. It plays 3,500 years BC, and Joan is in this life a young boy. This is the second part, and it's chapter 5, and it's entitled SEBEK. A few days after my return to the house of the captains, I found an opportunity to tell SEBEK that I had become a watcher. We had taken our throwing sticks down to the marsh at dawn to wait for the wildfowl to come back from their feeding grounds. SEBEK was more skilled than I, but that morning he only got 7 birds, 5 of them wild duck, to my 6. It was 3 months before the inundation, and it was already warm enough to be pleasant in the early morning, so we decided not to go home for the first meal. By ourselves in a clearing, among the reeds, it was easy to forget that he was the captain and authority over me. I thought of him only as the SEBEK with whom Kias and I had played since we were children, the SEBEK from whom I need not conceal my thoughts. He was lying on his back, chewing a stem of grass, when I said, "Rodan has made me a watcher. He told me to tell you." "I'm glad. I told him a year ago that you should join us, but he said the sign must come from you, not from him." "You told him? Why? What had I done to make you think I was a watcher?" "Quite a lot of things, but I think the first was when you woke up shouting Anubis and abused me as though I were a kennel boy who had forgotten to feed your favorite dog. There are not many soldiers who can be so rude to their captain and yet make the captain feel he is to blame. Then, from what Dada said about you the morning after we stayed in his house, I was sure you should join us. Dadas is a watcher, of course." "You didn't know I was trying to follow Anubis, though, did you?" "Oh yes, I knew that. It must be nearly 5 years since Kias told me about it." "Kias told you?" He must have heard the incredulity in my voice, for he sat up and said emphatically, "Yes, Kias, and why shouldn't she?" "It was a secret between us. She promised never to tell anyone. She knew that I'd only laugh." "Well, if that's the reason you made her promise, she didn't break it. I'd give a lot to be able to dream, but I never do, though I've tried hard enough." "You want to dream? Then I wished I hadn't put it quite like that, because I saw I'd hurt him." "Yes, funny, isn't it? I'm a captain and I talk like a temple pupil. I suppose you think it's odd that a captain should want to know what he's fighting for, to see something of the pattern instead of being so occupied with keeping the little threads from getting raveled that he can't see beyond them. I suppose you think that keeping 100 working in harmony together and making the lazy ones sweat until they can throw a javelin as well as I know they can if they try, and bringing in an occasional lawbreaker, and seeing that each village gets its fair allowance from the granaries in a lean year, should be sufficient interest for a mere soldier. And think of the excitement he gets netting crocodiles when they make a nuisance of themselves, or killing an old lion that has come down on the heads. Oh yes, that's plenty to fill my life. Dreams. What are dreams to a captain?" "Sorry, SEBEK. I'm a fool. You know I didn't mean that, but I thought Kias was the only person except Rodan who knew I was trying to dream true. She thought it was rather nonsense. She only helped me because, well, we always have tried to help each other. She always said dreams were for old men or for priests, and that's why I was afraid of your knowing what I was trying to do." He laid back and pulled another grass stem to chew. "Well, that's one misunderstanding cleared up. You don't think I've got only one idea like the master of the javelins, and I don't think you are any less good a soldier because you'd like to follow the standard of Anubis. You mustn't be cross with Kias for telling me what you were doing." "That's all very well, but I am cross. I know she tells lies to other people. She says it's their fault because they make it necessary. But I didn't think she'd break a promise to me." "If she hadn't loved you, If she hadn't loved you, she wouldn't have done so. And to break a promise out of love is much better than being bound a prisoner of words. When she broke that promise, she had more knowledge than when she made it. And the knowledge told her it should be broken. Why did you make her promise anyhow? Because you were frightened of being laughed at. Well, she knew I wouldn't laugh. She knew that my knowing would strengthen the link between you and me. And that's the only way to judge the merits of speaking or keeping silent. Whether anything you say can strengthen affection between two people or weaken it. Do you think Kiers will ever be a watcher? I don't think. I know she will. But she's only a child. Her body maybe, but she isn't. Don't you remember how we always did what she wanted us to do when we were playing together? She led us into adventures far more often than we led her, and usually she got us out of them too, for she was always quicker-witted than either of us. Since you've been here, she sits beside your father when he gives judgment. He told Royden himself that she was a better judge between two petitioners than he was. She doesn't remember her dreams, but she told me she often wakes wiser than when she went to sleep. It doesn't matter how she finds her knowledge, as long as the result is true. Haven't you noticed how she always seems to know if any one of your father's estates is in trouble or needs help? She's interested in people, as a priest is interested in magic or captain in his men. That's how she gets her wisdom, from knowing people's hearts and understanding why they behave as they do. She may not be able to judge if a man has acted for good or evil, but she'll always know why he's acted. Yes, you're right about Kiers. I never realized it before. No, you wouldn't. You're only her brother. I thought how pleased Kiers would have been to hear that note in SEBEK's voice. Dear naughty little Kiers, whom I loved and SEBEK seemed to think so wise. How she would have enjoyed listening to our conversation. He went on, still rather heated. You wait till Kiers has an opportunity to show her strength, then you will realize she's more than the child who teases you, and teases me often enough. Royden has known her all her life, and he says if there were more people like her, there'd be no need for the watchers. It doesn't sound much when you put it into words, just being the sort of person to whom people tell their troubles without trying to hide anything. But think what a lot it means to have someone to talk to like that. Nearly everyone has someone of which they're ashamed, and shame is like a statue of Sekhmet, set up in a hidden sanctuary. A statue they are always trying to appropriate by little lies, little evasions. They're terrified that someone will find them out, but alone they haven't got the courage to destroy it. It's far worse outside the oryx. People are crippled by the thongs of little false laws they've made themselves. They pretend to be richer than they are, to be cleverer, to be a united family when they would be much better apart, to love their children when there's no real link between them. They pretend to be faithful to the gods when they believe only in death. Shame, like a fungus, grows best in the dark, and if spoken about, is as though the room which has kept it alive were broken down. He paused. I think he was embarrassed by his own vehemence and said, We must go back. I didn't realize it was so late. Then, as he stooped to pick up his string of wild fowl, he said over his shoulder, So you won't be surprised, will you, Ra, when Kiers is a watcher? She can open the mouths of the dumb, and that is a magic worth of a priest. That was the end of chapter 5. Have a good Monday.